Before a great battle, King David felt the weight of his kingdom. His army was ready, but his heart was heavy with fear. Leaving his generals behind, he went to the base of a mountain alone. He knelt on the hard ground and prayed, "O Lord, my rock, be my strength in this time of need." As he cried out to God, a brilliant light pierced the clouds. It descended from the heavens, wrapping David in a warm, divine embrace. Strength flowed into his spirit, and all fear vanished. He rose to his feet, no longer a worried king, but a warrior filled with God's power. David returned to his army with a new fire in his eyes. He led them not with his own might, but with the strength he received from above. The victory that day was not his, but the Lord's. This story reminds us that our true strength comes from God.
Now David was greatly distressed, but David strengthened himself in the Lord his God.
In a way, the following information is rather surprising, but in another way, it is not. Did you know that the number of Americans seeking mental health treatment is almost double as it was 2 decades ago? To me, such is surprising because if you look at all of the various things that are available to us, that are designed to keep us mentally fit, you might say, there should not be a significant problem with mental health. We have all sorts of recreational activities, entertainment possibilities, sporting events, and social connections, which are intended to help us to deal with the stress and anxiety of day-to-day life. We have so many ways to deal with stress. No generation in history has had the outlets that we have today that are supposed to help us deal with the various pressures of day-to-day living. Entertainment, recreation, sports, social media, all of which are designed to eliminate all the pressures and the tensions of modern life. We work less than any other generation before us, and we have at our disposal all kinds of machines and devices that make work and life easy. We have more free time, more leisure time than any other group of people that has ever lived before us. So if there is one generation that should be mentally healthy, it should be our generation. But amazingly, such is not the case. But such is really no surprise. Look at the tension that we are subjected to day after day and moment by moment. We have 24-hour-a-day news cycles bombarding us, where bad news or negative commentaries dominate the headlines. We are constantly being bombarded with negative information on our cell phones through constant non-stop notifications, all of which seem to bring more stress into our lives and makes us more anxious about living. Political speech and political subject matter is always filled with anger and hate. You can't even have a conversation with people nowadays without it eventually becoming a shouting match. And everything we say or do is constantly being monitored by others, so that whatever we say or do could very easily be taken and twisted and used against us in some way or another. We are basically walking around on eggshells, hoping that we don't say or do anything wrong. And the tension is so bad that all of the various avenues like recreation and entertainment and social media and sport does nothing to help eliminate all of it. And too often, it even adds to the problem. And isn't it amazing? The various things that used to eliminate tension and stress and anxiety have been turned into battlegrounds. Sporting events, movie theaters, and public parks have become places of confrontation and violence. And our mental health has suffered from it. Mentally and emotionally, we are sick. The evidence is very clear. Listen to the following. In 2004, just 13% of adults said that they had visited a therapist, psychiatrist, or some other mental health professional within the past year. In 2022, that number was up to 23%. It has now been reported that about 1 in 8 U.S. adults now take an antidepressant of some sort, and 1 in 5 have recently received some kind of mental health care, an increase of almost 15 million people since 2002. We are told from 2019 to 2022, the use of mental health services jumped by almost 40% among the millions of U.S. adults who have some type of insurance or another. So why are so many people seeking therapy? The two most common reasons that lead people to seek therapy in the United States are anxiety and depression. Now, people seek therapy for stress help, relationship issues, and for personal growth. But anxiety and depression are still the most two major reasons. Studies reveal that anxiety affects approximately 19% of U.S. adults. And depression is the leading cause of disability for Americans ages 15 through 44. Nearly 8.3% of adults experience a major depressive episode each year. Now, with all of these people getting mental health therapy, you would expect some type of dramatic change within our culture. But the increase in violence, suicides, and the verbal outbursts of anger in public places, for the most part, tells us that something isn't working. Suicide rates have risen by almost 30% since the year 2000. Almost a third of U.S. adults now report symptoms of either depression or anxiety, roughly 3 times as many as in the year 2019. And about 1 in 25 adults has a serious mental illness like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. In 2022, just 31% of U.S. adults considered their mental health as being excellent, and that was down from 43% 2 decades earlier. Now, don't misunderstand. A lot of people do receive help from therapy. Going and talking to someone is always a positive thing, and it's the first step in the right direction. And admitting that you need help is always a good start. But it seems like we're missing a very important component in the mental health discussion, and that is the spiritual one. Now, contrary to what a lot of people believe, the Bible is very much concerned about a person's mental health. The Bible is concerned about wholeness. So therefore, it is concerned about the whole person, body, soul, spirit, and mind. The mind, of course, representing one's mental health. But all of those things are connected together. And what affects one affects the other as well. Over and over again, the Bible gives admonition after admonition about not being fearful, about not being anxious, not worrying or fretting, and about renewing one's mind. And it is constantly referring to one's attitude and outlook, admonishing the necessity of being joyful, regardless of one's circumstances, and being hopeful and optimistic about one's life and future. All of this, of course, is based upon a personal relationship with God by faith through Jesus Christ. And that is the starting point of having good mental health. The key to wellness and mental health begins with being well spiritually. And this begins by being forgiven by God and by having the peace of God within your heart. I believe that mental health begins with this. I also believe that maintaining one's mental health is tied to doing two particular things, two particular spiritual exercises on a regular basis. And those two things are simply prayer and praise. And this brings us to the verse that was shared at the very beginning. In 1 Samuel chapter 30, David and his army discovered that their base camp which not only served as a place where they launched their military campaigns, but it was also the place where their families lived and where they had their personal possessions. It had been attacked by an invading army, and their families and their possessions had been carried away by this army. And the members of David's army were so devastated by the loss of their families and possessions that they blamed David for it. And they talked of stoning him. They completely overlooked the fact that David had lost his own family members and possessions as well. The Bible tells us that David was so upset over his loss and the fact that his men wanted to stone him that he was greatly distressed. I believe the word suggests that he was completely and emotionally and mentally at the breaking point. But instead of just completely falling apart and having a mental breakdown, he withdrew himself from all others and encouraged himself in the Lord. Now, encouraging oneself in the Lord to David meant two particular things. And this was his pattern all throughout his life. Whenever he was in distress, whenever he experienced some type of emotional problem, he always practiced these two things. He got alone and he prayed, and then he offered to God praise. You know, doing those two things calmed his mind, soul, and spirit, and gave him an inner peace that made all of his anxiety, worry, and fear to simply just melt away. Once this was done, the solution to the problem came about. God directed him to go after those who had stolen away their families and possessions and bring them back. And such was what they did. When your life is filled with anxiety, stress, fear, and worry, to the point you can't take it anymore, the best therapy is to encourage yourself in the Lord. To get away and to speak to God. And then to focus your attention on Him and the good things that come your way and praise them for it. This is what David did over and over again. His writings in the book of the Psalms is a diary of his encouraging himself in the Lord through prayer and praise. And that is why so many have found wonderful consolation in the writings of David. They are so therapeutic. In fact, it is the best therapy ever. So if you are stressed out by life, filled with anxiety, fear, and worry, and you think that you cannot make it, step away from it all. Pray and give praise to God. Prayer helps you to talk to God about things, and it helps you to vent your emotions. And praise allows you to get your eyes off of yourself and focus your attention on the grace and goodness of God. Let me tell you something. Indeed, prayer and praise is the best therapy ever.